Julian never expected the universe to punch him in the face at 5:47 p.m. But there it was. Rowan stepping out of his old house with another man's hand tangled casually in his. And the worst part wasn't the betrayal or the timing, or even the universe's twisted sense of humor. It was the smile on Rowan's face, like he hadn't shattered someone else to make room for that happiness. The air in Maple Harbor, their quiet Massachusetts town just 30 minutes from Boston, hung oddly still, as if the breeze itself was trying to step back and give them space. Julian stood at the end of the driveway with a grocery bag in his hand, the strap cutting into his fingers. He had stupidly bought Rowan's favorite pastries, forgetting for one dangerously hopeful second that this year, he wasn't supposed to show up. They weren't supposed to see each other. Everything between them was supposed to be over. But 3-year anniversaries do terrible things to rational people. Rowan froze when he saw him. Eli, stunning, smiling, annoyingly comfortable, didn't freeze. He waved. Julian almost laughed. Out loud. Right there on the pavement. Rowan's voice cracked first. Julian? What are you doing here? What a ridiculous question for a man who used to wake up with Julian's hair in his mouth and his legs thrown over Julian like he owned the right to oxygen. I forgot, Julian said. Tone too even, too controlled. Today's the day you like to bring strangers home. Eli's brows shot up. Rowan winced. It wasn't planned, of course. Julian didn't plan anything anymore. He simply reacted, like someone who'd survived a tornado and hadn't fully realized the storm had already moved on. Julian had once loved Rowan with the kind of devotion people wrote unhealthy poetry about. And Rowan had loved him too. Enough to move states, enough to build a home together, enough to whisper futures into his collarbone. But not enough to stay. Rowan stepped forward, hands half raised, like approaching a wounded animal he wasn't sure wouldn't bite. Julian, we talked about this. We said we should take space. I didn't know you still what? Julian asked. Still existed? Rowan's lips parted, but no sound came out. Julian smiled. Too wide, too sharp. Eli shifted behind Rowan, sensing the storm he wasn't meant to be standing in. Hey, maybe I should wait inside. No, Julian said quickly, surprising himself. Stay. I want you to hear this too. Rowan tensed. Julian, don't. Why not? Julian tilted his head. You brought him here, on today of all days. Might as well let him know why you still can't look me in the eye. Eli's smile slowly disappeared. Rowan's chest rose and fell like he was preparing for impact. Julian, this isn't fair. Oh, sweetheart, Julian said softly. Nothing about this has been fair. A long silence stretched between them, years' worth, maybe. Julian finally put the grocery bag on the hood of Rowan's car. The bag toppled, pastries spilling out. He didn't pick them up. Instead, he drew in a breath, steadying himself, because he hadn't come here to fight. He had come here to let go, or pretend to. Actually, Julian said, voice leveling out, I came for something else. Rowan brows knit. What? Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, the last remaining injury he had yet to inflict on himself. Rowan blanched. Julian opened the box. Inside was a key, their house key, the one Julian had refused to give back when he moved out 2 months ago. The one Rowan had never demanded back because some twisted part of him wanted Julian to still come home. Julian held it out between 2 fingers. This, he said quietly, is my decision. Rowan didn't take it. His throat bobbed. His eyes turned glassy. Please don't do this right now. You already did, Julian said. You showed me what we are now. He placed the key on the car, next to the crushed pastries. Eli looked painfully out of place, but respectful enough to stay quiet. Julian respected him for that, even though it hurt like hell. Rowan whispered, I didn't bring him here to hurt you. But you did, Julian replied simply. And the worst part is, you didn't even think you would. Julian stepped back, turning toward the street, toward anywhere that wasn't Rowan. He had barely made it 2 steps when Rowan's voice cracked the air again. Julian, wait. He didn't. Not at first. Then he stopped, spine stiff, lungs tight, because some naive part of him still wanted Rowan to stop him. To explain. To say it was all a mistake. But Rowan didn't say any of those things. Instead, Rowan said the one thing Julian never expected him to say again. "I'm sorry." Julian laughed once, softly, bitterly. "You should keep that for someone who needs it." "I do need it," Rowan said, stepping toward him. "I need you to hear it." Julian turned slightly, just enough to see Rowan's face. The sunlight hit Rowan's eyes at an angle Julian used to love. Now it just made the ache sharper. "You don't have the right to need anything from me," Julian whispered. And that was that. Julian walked away. Rowan didn't follow. The town felt too bright as he moved through it, autumn leaves blazing neon shades of orange and red. Kids biking past with laughter that shouldn't hurt, but somehow did. Julian shoved his hands in his hoodie pockets, walking without destination, without purpose, without anything but the echo of Rowan's voice shadowing each step. He ended up at the pier, where the harbor wind slapped him awake. Fishermen yelled across boats, gulls screamed at the world, and Julian let the chaos swallow him. He took a seat on the edge of the wooden dock and let his legs dangle over the water. His breath shook once, twice, and then he let himself collapse forward, elbows on his knees, hands over his face. He didn't cry. He was done crying over Rowan. Or so he told himself. The dock creaked beside him. Julian stiffened and instantly wiped his face, even though there were no tears to hide. He expected a fisherman, a tourist, maybe a teenager. He did not expect a man with freckles, coppery curls, and paint smudged across his jeans to drop down beside him with a gentle thud. "I saw you yelling at the ocean," the stranger said matter-of-factly. "Thought I'd come check if you were planning to drown or just venting dramatically." Julian blinked at him. "I wasn't yelling." "You were definitely yelling." Julian stared at him. "Do I know you?" "Nope," the man said cheerfully. "But you looked like you needed someone who didn't know anything about you." "Lucky for you, that's my specialty." Julian let out something dangerously close to a laugh. "Who even talks like that?" "People who don't want you to throw yourself into the water," the stranger replied. "I'm Avery." Julian hesitated. "Julian." Avery nodded like he was tasting the name, like he approved of it. "Bad day?" Avery asked. Julian snorted. "More like a bad 3 years." "Well," Avery said, leaning back on his hands, eyes on the sunset. "Sounds like you're overdue for something good." Julian didn't respond. Couldn't really. Because something in Avery's presence, calm, bright, uninvited but welcome, sank into him like warm water soothing cold bones. They sat in silence, watching the sky fold into shades of pink and gold. Avery hummed a tune under his breath, something old and soft. Julian exhaled slowly. For the first time in months, it didn't feel like everything in his chest was collapsing. And for a moment, one fragile, improbable moment, Julian wondered if the world was trying to give him something back for everything it had taken. He didn't know then that Avery would become the second moment in his life where everything changed. Or that Rowan wouldn't accept any of it. Not yet. Not quietly. Not at all. Avery didn't push for details. That was the first thing Julian noticed about him. Most people, when they sensed heartbreak, circled around it like vultures around a wounded animal, curiosity sharper than compassion. Avery simply existed beside Julian, letting the quiet between them shape itself. Eventually, Julian found enough strength in his lungs to speak again. "You always approach strangers having emotional breakdowns on docks?" Avery shrugged one shoulder. "Only the cute ones." Julian choked, literally choked on air. Avery raised both hands. "Too soon." "Got it." Julian shook his head, a disbelieving smile tugging at his lips despite himself. "You're ridiculous. And you're upset," Avery replied, voice gentling. "But I won't ask about it. Not unless you want to talk." Julian didn't. Not really. Telling someone about Rowan felt like peeling skin off old scars. But the quiet kindness sitting next to him, unfamiliar, unexpected, made the weight in his chest shift. He didn't talk. But he didn't stand up to leave either. Avery kicked his feet lightly above the water. "You know, I moved here 2 months ago. Thought small coastal town, peaceful life, maybe finally finish my portfolio. Instead, I keep getting attacked by seagulls. Julian blinked. Attacked? They're menaces, Avery said solemnly. You drop one French fry and suddenly you're in a horror film. Julian covered his mouth, trying not to laugh. It didn't work. The laugh burst out of him, messy and real. Avery's smile bloomed like he'd been waiting for it. See? Much better. Julian looked at him carefully. Do you always show up exactly when people need whatever this is? Avery considered this. Mostly I just fail to mind my own business. Julian opened his mouth to respond, but his phone buzzed. He didn't need to look to know who it was. Rowan's ringtone still hadn't been changed. 3 soft notes from the song they used to dance to in their living room on Friday nights. Julian's chest tightened. He squeezed his eyes shut. You don't have to answer, Avery said quietly. But Julian did, because ignoring Rowan always felt like carving pieces of himself away. He pressed the phone to his ear. What do you want? Rowan's voice trembled, like he was speaking through shattered glass. Julian, please, come back. We need to talk. No, Julian said simply. Please, Rowan repeated. Not with Eli around. Just us. Just, please. Julian almost laughed. Of course. Only when he's not there. That's not fair, Rowan whispered. Julian's jaw clenched. You lost the right to talk about fairness. There was a stretch of silence so painful Julian could almost hear Rowan breathing on the other end, struggling for words. I didn't think you'd show up today, Rowan finally said. And when I saw you, Julian, I just froze. I didn't know what to do. You could have not brought him to our house on our anniversary. It's not our house anymore, Rowan murmured. I know, Julian said. I gave you the key. Yeah, Rowan whispered. You did. Julian could hear the crack in his voice, could picture the way Rowan probably sat on the kitchen stool, elbows on his knees, hand in his hair, like he always did when he didn't know how to fix something. He almost softened. Almost. I have to go, Julian said. Not angry, not cold, just done. Julian hung up. His hand shook slightly as he lowered the phone. Avery's eyes met his. Steady, warm, patient. That sounded awful. It's been awful, Julian said, voice hollow. For months. Avery didn't ask questions. He simply nudged Julian's shoulder with his own. A soft bump like a reassurance. Then maybe today is the day it starts getting less awful. Julian didn't know why, but that sentence broke something gentle open inside him. He inhaled sharply. Why are you being so nice to me? You don't even know me. Avery's answer came instantly. Do I need a reason to be kind? Julian stared at him. Avery shrugged. People forget kindness isn't a loan. You don't have to earn it back. Julian swallowed hard. The sun dipped lower. The sky shifted to lavender. Their reflections shimmered on the water. 2 strangers sitting almost shoulder to shoulder, breathing the same salt-heavy air. And then Avery stood, stretching. Come on. Julian blinked. Where? Somewhere with food, Avery said simply. Because you look like you haven't eaten in 24 hours and also like you need a distraction. Preferably one involving carbs. Julian hesitated. I shouldn't. No pressure, Avery said, backing away with hands raised. I'm not asking for your entire tragic backstory or for you to marry me or whatever horrifying thing your brain is worrying about. Just dinner. Or waffles. Or both. Julian fought a smile. You're very persistent. I prefer determined. Julian exhaled, the fight draining from him. Okay, dinner. Avery grinned. Perfect. And if you try to pay, I will absolutely cause a scene. Julian raised an eyebrow. What kind of scene? The kind where I loudly declare you're my long-lost ex-husband who abandoned me and the children. Julian snorted. We don't have children. Not with that attitude. Julian laughed again, his chest loosening bit by bit. Maybe he deserved something that didn't hurt. Maybe Avery was right. They walked off the dock together, side by side, feet almost in sync. Maple Harbor had a diner that felt frozen in time, the Blue Gull, all neon blues and chrome counters, with a waitress named Marla whose eyeliner was sharp enough to stab someone and whose coffee could probably strip paint. Avery slid into the booth seat across from Julian and immediately knocked over the salt shaker. He froze. Pretend that didn't happen. Julian cracked a smile. You're doing amazing. Thank you, Avery said, pretending to wipe sweat from his brow. They ordered waffles, fries, and bottomless coffee that tasted like punishment. Julian wasn't sure how Avery drank it so casually. So, Avery said after a long sip, you gonna tell me what's going on? Or do we need 5 more hours of small talk first? Julian traced a finger along the edge of the cup. His voice came out low. I got out of a long relationship. Avery nodded like he already knew. How long? 3 years. Oof, Avery said. Heavy. Julian huffed softly. That's one word for it. And I'm guessing it didn't end because you stopped loving each other. Julian looked up sharply. How did you know? Avery shrugged. The way your voice trembles every time you say his name. The way you almost apologized when you hung up on him. The way you keep touching the spot on your chest like something is missing. Julian dropped his hand from his chest quickly. Avery smiled gently. I wasn't judging. Julian couldn't speak for a moment. Then he said quietly, I didn't want things to end. What happened? Julian hesitated. Then, cautiously half-testing, half-confessing, said, he said he needed space. I moved out. And then today, he brought his new boyfriend home. Avery sucked in a breath. On your anniversary? Yes. Avery leaned back, expression darkening. Okay, that's villain origin story material. Julian let out a rough laugh. Avery's voice lowered. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. Julian looked down at his hands. I don't know if I deserved anything else either. Don't do that, Avery said instantly, tone firm. Don't blame yourself for someone else's choices. Julian's throat tightened. He didn't know why Avery's belief in him felt so startling. Nobody had defended him lately. Nobody had been on his side. Except Avery. You barely know me, Julian whispered. Avery's voice softened. Maybe, but I know pain when I see it. And I know you didn't put that look in your own eyes. Julian felt something warm gather in his chest. He cleared his throat. What about you? Why did you move here? Avery blinked, caught off guard. Oh, well, I needed space too. Julian arched a brow. Avery smirked. Except I didn't have a dramatic breakup. Just life stuff. Life stuff. Avery nodded. My mom passed away last year. I stopped painting. Couldn't breathe in the city anymore. Julian's expression softened. I'm sorry. Avery shrugged. Grief makes everyone weird. I decided to move somewhere small and quiet until I remembered how to be a person. Julian smiled sadly. Are you remembering yet? Avery tapped the table thoughtfully. Little by little. Their eyes met again. Something settled between them, not romantic. Not yet. But something warm. Something promising. Something fragile. Hours passed without Julian realizing it. They talked about childhood disasters, favorite movies, terrible exes, best meals, worst haircuts, everything and nothing, until the diner emptied out. At 1 a.m, they finally stepped outside. The night air was cold. Avery zipped his jacket and inhaled deeply. Thanks for tonight. You're thanking me? Julian asked. You dragged me out. Still, Avery said with a small smile. You could have said no. Julian looked at him, really looked at him. The freckles, the easy warmth, the energy that somehow softened the sharp edges inside Julian. Julian said quietly, I'm glad I didn't. Avery's lips parted just slightly, as if he didn't expect that answer. For a moment, the world shrank to only the two of them standing under the flickering diner sign. Then Julian's phone buzzed again. Avery nodded toward it. Rowan? Julian didn't answer. He didn't need to. He didn't pick up. Avery smiled faintly. Good. Julian let out a breath that felt like the first one he'd exhaled freely all day. Avery stepped backward toward his car. Get home safe, Julian. You too. Avery gave him a small wave before driving off into the dark. Julian stood under the neon glow a moment longer, feeling the night settle around him like a blanket. He climbed into his own car, hands still warm from Avery's presence. He didn't start the engine immediately. He sat there, staring at the glowing screen of his phone. 15 missed calls. 7 messages. All from Rowan. Julian closed his eyes. Then, for the first time, he didn't open the messages. He put the phone face down, started the car, and drove into the sleeping town. But what Julian didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the next morning, Rowan would be waiting for him. And Rowan wasn't coming to apologize. He was coming because something inside him had snapped. And he wasn't ready to lose Julian. Not to time. Not to regret. Not to someone new. Especially not to Avery. Julian woke the next morning with sunlight stabbing through the thin curtains of his rented apartment. His head felt heavy, but not from lack of sleep, from the emotional whiplash of yesterday. The fight, the key, the dock, Avery, the diner, the 15 missed calls he still hadn't opened. For once, he didn't check his phone before getting out of bed. He showered, dressed, made weak coffee, tried to pretend the world was normal. But when he stepped outside to leave for work, that illusion shattered immediately. Rowan was standing beside Julian's car. Not just standing, pacing, rubbing the back of his neck, looking like he hadn't slept, like he'd been waiting there for hours. Julian froze on the steps. Rowan turned the instant he heard the door. Their eyes locked. Rowan's desperate, Julian's guarded. "Julian," Rowan breathed, exhale shaking. "Thank God." Julian didn't move. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you." "No," Julian said evenly. "You wanted to see me. That's not the same." Rowan flinched like the words hit him physically. He stepped closer. "Please, just listen." "No," Julian shook his head. "I'm done listening to you explain things you never should have done in the first place." Rowan swallowed. Hard. "I broke up with Eli." Julian blinked. "What?" "Last night," Rowan said. "After you left. I told him it was a mistake, that I wasn't ready, that I shouldn't have brought him home yesterday. I told him I'm still in love." "Stop," Julian said quickly, voice cracking on the edge. "Don't say that. It's true." Julian turned away, staring at the empty street, at anything but Rowan. "You don't get to say that to me now." "You still love me," Rowan said quietly. "I know you do." Julian laughed bitterly. "Love isn't the question, and it hasn't been for a long time." "Then what is?" "Respect," Julian said, voice thin. "And you stopped giving me that months before we broke up." Rowan went still. The wind rustled the leaves on the old maple tree beside the parking lot. A neighbor's dog barked 2 blocks away. The world dared to continue spinning while Julian felt like his feet were cemented to the asphalt. Rowan took one more step, close enough that Julian could smell his familiar cologne, the one scent that always made him weak. He hated that. "Julian," Rowan whispered, "I made a mistake, a huge one, but I want to fix it." Julian closed his eyes. "You can't fix this." "Yes, I can." "No," Julian whispered. "You don't get to break me and then decide when I get to be okay again." Something inside Rowan cracked. His shoulders sagged. His eyes dropped. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," Julian said. "And every time you called last night, every time you apologized, every time you tried to talk, you just made it worse." Rowan's voice trembled. "I panicked, Julian. I didn't handle our breakup the right way. I didn't handle you the right way. But I'm trying now." "Can't that matter for something?" Julian stared at him. For years, Rowan had been the sun in his sky, warm, consuming, blinding. But now, standing on the parking lot in yesterday's clothes, Rowan didn't look like the center of the universe. He looked like a man who realized too late what he'd thrown away. Julian swallowed. "I met someone yesterday." Rowan stiffened. "Avery." Julian blinked. "How do you?" "You posted a picture on your story," Rowan said softly. "The diner sign behind you. I know that place. I know you wouldn't go alone. And I know how you laugh when you're trying not to hurt." Julian felt heat crawl up his neck. "It wasn't a date." Rowan nodded slowly. But you smiled. With him. I haven't seen you smile like that in months. Julian didn't answer. Because it was true. That scared the hell out of me, Rowan whispered. Because I thought maybe you were moving on. Julian's voice softened despite himself. And if I was? Rowan's jaw clenched. Then I'd still fight for you. Julian looked down. You don't get to fight for me only after someone else tries to care. Rowan stood there, breathing hard, not angry, not defensive, but terrified. Can we talk? Rowan pleaded. Really talk? Not out here. Not like this. Julian hesitated. He didn't owe Rowan anything, but he owed himself closure. Fine, Julian said. 10 minutes. At the park. They walked separately to Willow Park, a quiet patch of grass and benches overlooking a small lake. Children fed ducks. An old couple held hands. The world existed in soft, quiet moments. Julian chose a bench under a tree. Rowan approached slowly and sat a careful distance away. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Rowan inhaled shakily. I didn't bring Eli home yesterday to hurt you. I didn't think you'd show up. Julian stared ahead. That's the problem. You didn't think. I know. You never do, Rowan. You act. And then you say sorry afterward. Rowan lowered his gaze. Julian continued. I didn't come to that house for you. I came because part of me still believed. There was something left. That maybe you still cared. But you were already replacing me. That's not fair. It's true, Julian cut in. And I'm done pretending it's not. Rowan swallowed. Julian, I didn't replace you. I was trying to forget you. That's worse. Rowan flinched. Julian turned toward him. Did you love him? No. Did you care about me when you were with him? Yes. Julian let out a soft, bitter laugh. Do you hear yourself? Rowan pressed his palms together. I know I messed up, but I want to fix us. Julian looked at the lake, its surface rippling. Rowan, I don't think we're fixable. Rowan's breath shuddered. Please don't say that. Julian blinked slowly. I will always have love for you. But that's not enough. Not anymore. Rowan's voice cracked. I love you. Julian's chest tightened painfully. I know. Then why? Because you didn't love me right, Julian said softly. And Avery, he might, or he might not. But he hasn't hurt me. Not once. Rowan's eyes filled with tears. I can love you right. I can try. Just give me one more chance. One. Julian shook his head. You had hundreds. Rowan bowed his head, shoulders trembling. Julian felt tears prick his own eyes, not from love, not from heartbreak, but from release. I forgive you, Julian whispered. Rowan looked up sharply. Julian continued. But I'm done being yours. Rowan exhaled a broken sound, half sob, half disbelief. Julian stood. Rowan rose instantly. Julian stepped back. Goodbye, Rowan. Rowan's face crumpled. Julian turned and walked away. And Rowan didn't follow this time. Julian didn't cry on the walk home. He didn't feel victorious. He didn't feel destroyed. He felt something strange, something light and hollow and infinite. He felt free. He reached his apartment steps, hand shaking slightly as he unlocked the door. His phone buzzed. A message. Not from Rowan. From Avery. Saw a dog today wearing sunglasses. Thought of you. Coffee later? Or emotional spiraling? I'm good with either. Julian laughed, a real, full laugh. He typed back. Coffee. No spiraling. Well, maybe some spiraling. Avery replied instantly. Perfect. I excel at catching spirals. Julian stared at the screen, heart beating softly, gently, not frantic, not aching. He stepped inside his apartment, sunlight pooling across the floor. For the first time in a long time, Julian felt the future shift. Not because someone demanded to be in it, but because someone was willing to show up softly. He grabbed his jacket, locked the door, and headed toward the cafe. Each step felt like a beginning. Not because he needed a new love to erase the old one, but because he deserved a love that didn't require breaking first. And maybe, just maybe, Avery would be part of that new beginning. Julian didn't know where things would go. He only knew one thing for certain. He would never again let someone love him halfway. And as he reached the cafe and saw Avery waving through the window, eyes bright, smile wide, and real, Julian let himself hope. Softly, quietly, finally, he walked through the door, and the world felt possible again. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.